So Rachel Gilmore is probably one of the main reasons why I would never call myself a feminist again. Welcome back to the Freedom Pines podcast. I'm your host, Jamie B. This is where we debrief and discuss pop culture and politics from an independent perspective. And if that interests you, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with your friends because it's hard to get my name out in Commie Canada. Let's get into it. So what I'm about to show you is Rachel Gilmore and all of her glorious hypocrisy, which is, it's so unbearable for me to watch Rachel Gilmore say these things at a committee meeting. And the only reason why she knows is because she also benefits from those things. So let's take a look.
But there's a lot of people who have figured out that there's a ton of money in exploiting people's fear, insecurity. A group of anti-LGBTQ protesters got together to spew hate under the pretense of protecting kids today.
This is what Rachel Gilmore says is full of hate.
So this is one of those things where I was actually at the Million Man March because I am very passionate about this because they have completely ruined the good thing that we had going with their Marxist ideologies. Okay, you know, maybe if Rachel Gilmore actually rolled out of bed that day and went to this thing, because I had to get up at 1 a.m. to drive to Ottawa. If Rachel Gilmore actually had the balls to do something like that and she came and talked to us, she would see that not only was this the most diverse group of people I had ever seen in my life, none of us had hateful signs whatsoever. We disagree with the curriculum and the curriculum only. Okay? And to see Rachel Gilmore have the gall and the balls to just stand there and tell her audience that when it was truly untrue is kind of abhorrent to me. Okay, Rachel Gilmore is very influential among young Canadians. So many people just listen to her for her little news tidbits, when in reality, Rachel Gilmore is extremely biased, which makes her not really a journalist, rather a left-leaning content creator. Okay. Because the reality of it is that in journalism, there's supposed to be an ethical standard of practice where you are not biased, and Rachel is very much biased. She very much touts all of these theories as fact, when in reality, they're not fact at all. They're quite simply theories. And she has such a huge problem with religion being implemented in places and all these different things. However, she has no problem with the schools teaching this ideology as fact, especially the race theory one, where it says that it teaches children, which I have no idea how they don't see the irony and how this is having a counterproduction to what they want to happen, where they teach children from a young age that if they're white, they're better than everybody. And Rachel Gilmore in the beginning of this has the gall and audacity to talk about how the male students at the schools are saying horrible stuff and getting away with it. And then goes on to talk about how it's because of the internet and all of these different things. Well, it's also because of DEI measures, because boys said horrendous stuff back when I was in high school, but they didn't say it to their teachers. Why? Because they weren't allowed to back then, and there would have been consequences. But with DEI, there's no consequences. Which, by the way, later on she is asked if there is a man who has harmed his girlfriend, like actually there's she's beat up. It was an example of somebody who had actually been and then survived, and then the person was out on bail, and Rachel actually defends this person being on bail because there's too many people in jail who are there wrongfully, and being in jail wouldn't stop the behavior. Yes, it would. What are you talking about, Rachel? And then she talks about how she gets threats. She gets stalked, because she's online and in this space. She's attacked for being a woman. Rachel, unplug your computer, girl. Go get a job somewhere else. Okay? Because backlash comes with putting yourself online. Okay? And all you have to do is block someone. If you don't like what someone is saying to you, you can block them. And if it's the emails, you can quite simply just delete the emails. However, what I have a problem with is you calling the cops. What are they going to do? You have advocated for people not having consequences to their behaviors. So what do you expect, white woman, as you would say? Why do you expect any different treatment than a domestic violence victim who has quite literally physical injuries? You don't think that that person's partner should be in jail, but you think your stalker should be in jail? Can you make that make sense to me? And I saw her last night and she's like, oh, look at all of these misogyny. Yes, because your theories are based in an ideological fallacy that anybody can be anything at any time, but everybody is racist at any time and any point of the day. And she touts these things as fact while at the same time complaining about the repercussions from her actions. This is the most, the left always says, if the right wants to promote violence. You guys literally allow perpetrators back into the public because you think that jail isn't going to change their behavior. I don't even hear you saying that you want them in some sort of program. What? I heard her say, I'm not going to take anybody seriously unless they have an actual valid argument. Here's my argument. You're not a good journalist, okay, in my opinion, because when I went to school for television and broadcasting, I know that you guys had to take this oath of ethical standard of practice when it came to journalism. And you're not supposed to be biased, Rachel. You're a left-leaning content creator, and that's fine. But in the reality, in the time when journalism was trusted and good, and people actually listened to what the mainstream media had to say, although I don't even know when they started lying and when they were telling the truth at this point, there was an ethical standard of practice that you had to abide by, and I've seen a multitude of violations of that ethical standard of practice. Lying about James Todd. Who are these experts that you speak of that say that you shouldn't go to Thanksgiving with people who aren't like you in other ways, if you know what I mean? Didn't take the same medication as you. And you know what? With this C9 thing, if you're going to take down all of the religions, we're taking down Marxist ideology. We're labeling Marxism as some sort of religious cult. And it's going to be hateful because it is hateful. It is hateful to tell people that if they don't agree with your theories and your ideologies, then they're bad people and they don't deserve to exist. You guys say that we are born racist. Okay, that's hateful. That's not okay. And Rachel, maybe if you paid attention, by the way, to all of us who were complaining about what was in the curriculum, maybe you would realize that advocating for things like teaching children a lot of horrendous things in the name of LGBTQ+ way too early, might be a little inappropriate. Keeping things as serious as a social transition from parents is actually insane and very colonizer, if you will. I'm not kidding. And you know how when we were younger and if you were a boy and you did a certain thing, then you would be called gay. Well, actually, the millennials weren't doing that, and then all of a sudden you guys started gendering things again and unironically creating the new conversion therapy. And I'm not sorry for saying, as parents have had their kids go to school and be called a girl if they're a boy because they like certain girl things, and that's not okay. That's not okay. Let kids be kids. And by the way, if this is something that Rachel Gilmore advocates for, which it is, because she says that if you disagree with Soje, then you are hateful, bigoted, all of the different things. It's literally a curriculum based upon the assumption that parents are unaccepting of their children. And the last time, and the reason why we don't do things like that, by the way, is residential schools. And Rachel will sit there and say so-called parental rights. Parental rights exist because of residential schools, Rachel. And so you're telling me that I have to call myself a feminist while at the same time advocating for men who have been shmushmushiv to their wives, allow them to walk around free because there might be a chance that they have been wrongfully accused. The example that this woman used, there was no mistaking that this man was guilty of harming this woman. And Rachel still sat there and said, yeah.
He should have been kept behind bars.
Sorry. I was just going to say that, so are you specifically asking about tightening bail laws?
Yes.
Is that specifically? Yes. Okay. Because in the context of bail laws, I think that while there are aspects of the bail system that need reform. The bail system, currently in Ontario, I don't have the figures handy in my head right now, but my understanding is that there are more legally innocent people currently incarcerated than there are who have gone through the justice system and been found guilty and been incarcerated. So I'm not sure that just putting more people in the carceral system in that respect is necessarily the answer, but
You guys, this is a real committee meeting. Rachel has sway right now with what she's saying. And she has the nerve to say that, I'm a bad person because I don't want to call myself whatever she's calling herself because I use common sense and logic. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, Rachel. You had the chance to make some difference today. And what did you do? You made a point. This is what people call woke, by the way. This is what woke is. Using the straw man argument of there are a percentage of people wrongfully convicted in Ontario, so don't put men who are shmushmusive to their wives in jail because of that. You're expecting all of us to listen to you when it comes to that. And for some reason, the government said, yeah, let's... And by the way, she did a day in a life. Come with me to testify at committee. I don't know what dystopian nightmare that we are living in right now, but Rachel Gilmore is helping facilitate that. Not allegedly. Okay, she's in committee meeting. Rachel Gilmore deadass sat there and tried to debunk the Great Reset by saying that it was just an aesthetic for a party, like it was the theme of the WEF that year. It was the theme of the WEF that year. She stands up for the WEF. Oh, okay. Okay, so you love the oligarchs then, because that's where all this crap comes from, because not only do governments go to that thing, so do the CEOs of all of these companies that have been in business for hundreds of years. And truthfully, the fact of the matter is that Rachel Gilmore goes on things like Telegram and 4chan to get all of her research. She literally goes on pages that are dedicated to trolling people to get research to prove things about the far right. There's been one story that she reported on that was actually a story about someone who was anti-LGBTQ+ and did something crazy. And I didn't believe her until someone told me that they had known this story from before, and I looked into it. I don't take you seriously anymore at all, Rachel. Okay? Because all of the things that you say are isms or phobias. I'm not allowed to disagree with a curriculum. I'm suddenly phobic. Okay? I don't agree with telling children that they're better than everyone because they were born white. And sending the message to students of any other race that they are somehow different. That is not what we learned in school. We learned the logical thing that the closer you get to the equator, the darker your skin is, because that's the magic of God. He prepares you for the weather that you are in, which is why I am see-through, okay? Which is why I can run on snow, because I'm meant to be here for some reason. I have no idea. And you know what? I can objectively look and say that people have used the Bible for nefarious things, but I can also sit here and say that they have used Marxist ideology for horrible and nefarious things as well. That's what unbiased means. Although, by the way, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus. I can still see that, and that's what it means to not be biased. So I hope you learned a little bit of something today, Rachel, if you watched this video. And let's share this with your friends, because Rachel Gilmore has a lot more influence than you guys probably realize, which is why I do these sorts of things, because one day we might not be able to. So at least I'll be planting a seed. So I want to remind you guys that you matter, okay? You're here for a reason, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Okay, let's take a deep breath. That is actually something I needed today after watching Rachel Gilmore testify and say the most outrageous things. I'm going to link the full stream. I suggest not watching it. Put it on and put it on mute to give him the view, okay? But it's a hard watch, okay? I'll see you guys tomorrow.